name is Maria and this is Liam, and I just wanted to do a little video sharing his little NICU story. So during my whole pregnancy, I was really healthy. I was gaining good weight. He was measuring good. My blood pressure was good. Everything was going fine. I didn't have any morning sickness, nothing like that. So they didn't really tell us why he came early. The day before, which was a Saturday, the day before he was born, we were doing fine. I actually went to Denver that Friday because my husband got his LASIK, so we were down there, and I was having already contractions, but I didn't really pay attention to them because I thought they felt like period cramps, and I was like, no, it's normal. You know, the doctor told me that I would be feeling little kind of cramps here and there because the placenta was stretching and everything. And then so that Friday everything was fine. We were in Denver, we drove back, and I was still having a little bit of pain when I was like sitting down. I couldn't really sit down that good, but I couldn't really sit down in the car. Then Saturday morning we still went back to Denver because he had his following appointment, and everything was fine. Nothing came to mind or anything like that. And then that Saturday in the afternoon we went to my mother-in-law, and I was feeling fine. I was kind of, you know, feeling little cramps, but nothing too much, until she was like, hey, like, let's go to the hospital, have you check, make sure everything's fine. And in my mind I'm like, no, you know, everything's fine, but we still went just because, why not, to make sure that everything was going fine. And sure enough, I was already 4 centimeters dilated, and my water was broken. I didn't even know. It's not like the movies, you know, donde pasan que toda el agua se te quiebra, you know. It's nothing like that. It was like a little bit of drips, so I wouldn't even have known. I didn't know. And so we went, they told us that my water had already been, it was broken, and I stayed there that for a couple hours. They had me checked, and then I was admitted. And then I was in labor for a good 15 hours without any epidural or anything like that. But then after, the contractions really started kicking in, and that's where I got the epidural. And then after that, it took 2 hours pushing because his little head was really big, so he wasn't able to come out until somebody, you know, at the end came and helped me with that. And that can be like a whole different story. But after he was born, I spent skin to skin with him for about 15 minutes. And we took him into the NICU. Before then, nobody really told us kind of what to expect. They just told us, hey, he's coming 5 weeks early. He's gonna go into the NICU. I had like the app where it tells you like how many weeks you are and what to expect and stuff like that. And I knew that he wasn't full term yet, but I didn't really know kind of what he needed to get to where he needed to be. So after that, they took him, my husband went with him, and I stayed in the room with my mom and my mother-in-law, and they kept asking me questions like, hey, or like, are they gonna bring the baby back? And I told them that he was gonna go in the NICU, but you know, they didn't really understand what was going on either, and I didn't either, because none of my family or close friends, anything like that, have really experienced anything like that, so everything was really new to us. And then after that, they took him in. I stayed, I think it was like 2 hours before I could go into like the other room, the recovery room. And so they cleaned me up, they brought me the wheelchair, and then wheeled me down to the recovery room. and that was when I was able to go into the NICU to see him for 18 hours. So I was tired, I was exhausted, I didn't know what was going on. Everything was really emotional, you know, I was crying. I didn't know what was gonna happen with him. And I'll insert pictures in here. And so I was a wreck, and my husband was the one who went with him, and he got to see like how they did his vaccinations. They settled him into like his little room and everything. And even then, my husband nor the nurse didn't really explain to me, and I didn't ask a lot of questions then because I didn't really know what was going on. So he was there, I came in, and I just saw him, you know, laying there with the wires and stuff. And in my mind I was like, he'll be here for a couple of days and that'll be it, and then we'll get to go home. And then after that, I went back to the room. I slept for a little bit, and right away they told me, hey, you need a pump in order to, you know, start getting milk for him and making sure that he gets the right nutrients, because that's really important for him now, especially him being a preemie. And of course, I right away started pumping every 3 hours, making sure that he got his milk. And that night, I just slept, you know, good the whole night. And we left him with the nurse, obviously, in the NICU. I didn't go the whole night because I needed rest. And then the following nights, I stayed with him at all times, 24/7. I didn't go out of the NICU or anything. They have a room so you can sleep in there with them, so that's what I did. And my husband would go to work, and that's what we did for 3 weeks. First week, you know, they were like, in order for him to go home with you, he needs to have regular temperature, he needs to be able to eat by himself and be able to breathe. Not by himself, but, you know, not having little attacks here and there. Episodes, what they called them. And the first week, you know, he was fine. He was eating a little bit, not too much, not what he was supposed to eat by mouth, but he was eating. His temperature was always good, thank God. He didn't need to be in like the little thing for his temperature. He was like in a normal baby crib. Thing was fine until about 4 to 5 days passed, and they tested him for jaundice, and sure enough, he did have jaundice. And so that kind of set him back a little bit. When he got jaundice the first time, they get really sleepy and not wanting to do a lot of things, so he didn't want to eat by himself anymore. So that's when they had to introduce an NG tube, and that was so heartbreaking. I still remember. I was still a wreck from everything that's been going on, you know. I just wanted to take my baby home with him and with me and be a family, but we couldn't do that yet. And at the time, I was kind of in denial. I was like, why are they keeping him? Everybody else that was having babies, everybody was getting to go home with them and whatever. I really understand what was going on. Everybody else who was having the babies, you know, I would see on social media, on my Snapchat, everything, you know. So it just brought a lot of emotions, and I was like, why can't I take my baby home with me, you know? But then after a while, obviously, I understood that he needed more help to be, you know, be a healthy baby, and that was fine. So then after that, he had an NG tube for about a week and a half, and that was, you know, helping him. So during then every 3 hours I would have to pump and you know, call the nurse for them to do the NG tube and feed him. And it would take him, they put the timer for about 30 minutes. So 30 minutes for that, and I would carry him with me, you know, I wouldn't just leave him there. I would carry him while he was eating, and then diaper change, everything. So every 3 hours the nurses would come, and then I was able to help with that, with the cares. So we did temperature, changed diapers, feeding, and clothes. I think that was all, every 3 hours that they did, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's what we did, every 3 hours, and then every 3 hours pump, you know, save my milk, do the NG tube, change him, all that, every 3 hours. And so I wasn't really getting much sleep because that whole process takes about an hour, you know, for it to be done. And then the other hour I would either go to the bathroom or stay up, watch him, carry him, cuddle with him, and then again, you know. So that's, and then when my husband would get to the hospital from work, he would stay there for about 3 to 4 hours, and then he would come back home because he needed to work, so he needed to rest. And so it was just me and my baby, and it was really lonely, you know, but it helped that our family was really supportive, both my side and his side. They were both there every afternoon, you know, even if they couldn't go in because you need only 4 people could go in, but even just them being there helped me a lot, and I'm sure my husband too. Just having somebody to talk to and distract you a little bit, you know, from everything that was happening. And so yeah, we did that for 3 weeks until he finally got to go home. And for those 3 weeks, that was the routine. For those 3 weeks, we thought he was gonna go home 2 times. The first time is when we were about to be discharged, but they were like, it's their routine, you know, to check for jaundice, and that was when he got it. So that set us back a little bit because he had to get rid of the jaundice. You know, he did go under blue lights, and I'll go ahead and insert that. As well. And then he had to go to the NICU tube, and he got jaundice 2 times, so we had to do that 2 times, actually 3 times, 3 treatments until he was finally good. And then we had to kind of teach him to feed himself again. Well, not himself, you know, but bottle feed. And so that's what we had to do as well for him to come home. And then he had to pass the car seat test, which they put him in the car seat, and they have to be good being able to breathe and everything for, I think it was an hour and a half or 2 hours. And the first time he did it right away. Within 15 minutes he was having a little episode, he couldn't breathe. So then we couldn't go home, obviously. And then the second time he passed it. So, and then what else? I'm trying to think. I'm sorry if I'm like everywhere, but, and then right when we were gonna go home, keep in mind this whole time he didn't need oxygen until the day of, when 2 days before I think we were discharged. He was having little episodes here and there with his oxygen until the nurse was like, okay, if he does it one more time, he's gonna go in oxygen because you know, he can't breathe on his own. So then the second day when we were supposed to get discharged, sure enough, he has another little episode, this little boy. And so he came home with oxygen, and he was on oxygen for about a week until he was good. The day that he turned 1 month was when they were like, okay, you know, he's good. They checked his oxygen levels and everything was fine. And then, so now every doctor visit, we would need to make sure that he's gaining weight. And, oh yeah, and then NICU, a couple of times when I was trying to breastfeed, he he wasn't gaining weight. So obviously he wasn't eating enough. So that's when we decided to go with bottles to measure how many mLs he was actually eating. And so that's when pumping came in, you know. And then after this, when I would try to breastfeed, sometimes he'll latch on, but then in my mind, I'm like, I don't know how many mLs he's eating, you know. So then that's when I was like, you know what, I think bottles is gonna work best for us. So I exclusively pumping all this time. He's 8 months now, and I'm still am, and I make sure that, you know, he eats. We need to get up and do everything for them, and you feel like everything is just kind of crushing you down, especially after giving birth. All that emotions that you get, you know, and then being like, what did I do wrong for my baby to not be healthy? You know, what could I have done better? And like all these kind of thoughts go through your head. But I'm so glad that my husband was there with me the whole time, you know, and we got through it. He was really sad too, obviously, seeing our little baby so small and not being a normal baby, you know what I mean? So yeah, but thank God after that month, now he's fine. He's growing healthy, eating perfectly. His development is going perfect. You know, Maria, and this is Liam.